Well, we do have the first set ready right now. It's a spec countdown going on, and we do have two teams that we both are pretty familiar with in a way. Femboy Federation, the team of Mr. Munch, and on the other side, Mokraken Mokomi. We actually had the chance to meet with these guys at King of the Rockies just a couple of months ago.
Yeah, both these players were really excited to be out there. I know the Mr. Munch was really excited to be out there. Was just happy to be part of that tournament. Now here as part of the Femboy Federation, and Makomi as well on Mokraken. We got to see him and meet him a lot as well. He was really very, I'm trying to think, very cerebral in his approach to coming to the game. He was constantly going over his replays and stuff. So I know he's been a player who's been growing a lot and been playing a lot too. So I'm excited to see these two kind of almost like a rematch of sorts, right? I don't know if they played in King of the Rockies. It's been so long now, but excited to see these guys going head to head in their team matches.
All right, so here we are in the single elimination part of the opening qualifiers round of 64, seed number 31 versus 34. So on paper, it's an evenly matched matchup. We're going to open this series on Dry Arabia, followed by a brand new map, potentially Kerlaugar, and then an old classic Gorge, one of my favorite team game maps. And as you can see, each team will pick 3 civilizations for each map, and then the opponent takes away one of those. That leaves you with just 2 civilizations. Byzantines and Rus for Mokraken, and English Abbasids for the Fanboy Federation. How do you feel about this matchup, seeing these civilizations?
I think, I mean, kind of looking at it, I think it's going to be very typical of what we'll see a lot of today, especially I'm looking at on the Femboy Federation side, ABBA, English, French. If there are 3 civs I could say that are going to dominate when available for a 2v2 tournament, those are the 3 I would kind of point to, I think, first and foremost. Then on the other side, of course, Biz being very strong, HRE is always a strong civ, and Rus is good. I mean, I don't have anything against Rus. I think we'll have a fun matchup here with those.
One of the things I was thinking about when I looked at this draft first is that you gotta be very smart with your civ picks here, which, I mean, is a statement that's always true. But here, the idea is that you're looking for a certain combination of units, let's say a cavalry civ and an archer civ. But you're going to pick 3 civilizations, and the opponent knows what you're looking for most likely. So they're going to take out, you know, one of those key components. So you gotta build up your draft such that you have some level of flexibility, and you have at least, let's say, 1 civilization which has that unit flexibility, as we had into game number 1 on Dry Arabia. First game, first series of the EGC Winter Team Championships in 2024. We're heading into Dry Arabia to take a look at the matchup between the Femboy Federation and Mokraken. Mokomi and Araken with the colors yellow and green, and on the other side, Sir Eisenstange and Mr. Munch with the Femboy Federation in pink and purple.
Yeah, I really like what you mentioned there about like Archer Cavalry. I think is going to be the comp of the day more often than not, especially in these early rounds. Because another one of those big differences in 2v2s is how you go about making your unit compositions. Because it may in a 1v1, you know, you don't usually just make one type of unit, but in a 2v2, that becomes much more viable because your partner inevitably is going to fill in that gap. So in this case, I mean, English is probably obviously going to go for some longbows at some point. I think would be the assumption. Maybe knights and castle. Whereas Mr. Munch playing as Abbasid, I would expect him to go maybe some camels, essentially. Camel archers probably early. Then later we'll see what their composition looks like. Both civs now kind of underway. We can kind of see. Looks like we're looking at Byzantines right now with Mokomi. And then over here we're looking at, how do you say that? Is there Eisenstange?
I would say it's Eisenstange based on the fact we have an Austrian player out there, but I feel like we're going to butcher that name quite frequently here.
Yeah, me especially. That's a tough turn of phrase for my poor tongue. So what are you looking for?
Caster life, right?
Caster life. Yep. Easier to say the Femboy Federation. Some of these, you know, that's another thing we were just talking about before we hopped in broadcast, was one of the fun things about a 2v2 tournament that you don't really see in a 1v1 is you get team names, and they're kind of fun. You get some fun creative choices with those. I like Mokraken. Yeah. That seems to really fit with both of those players' names. And I'm really curious where Femboy Federation came from.
Do you really want to know?
Not really, but yes. You know, curiosity killed the cat, right? But you know, if anyone's met the Mr. Munch, he doesn't come across as a femboy in traditional terms. I think that dude works out way more than I ever will.
Anyway, one thing I'm looking at here, just, you know, going into Feudal Age as we have the first landmarks coming in, is the compositions of these players. Because when you look at a 1v1, it's always want a player that has to make a composition of units, like knights and archers, or something along those lines. But in a 2v2, one thing that starts happening is that one player is responsible for a cavalry, for instance. The other one is responsible for the archers. But I've seen teams back in the past which went double cavalry. Easier to counter with spearmen, but you have a lot more mobility. So I feel like the synergy between the units chosen by each of the players on a team is going to be a key factor going forward in these team game series.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see kind of how they go about this. And another thing to consider too on the 2v2 map, as we're getting into kind of our first map of the day, is that some civs that rely a little bit more on tempo, with maybe less not using cavalry units, aren't gonna be able to do quite the same pushes and tempo timings because the size of the map is bigger than in a 1v1. So that does change the timings here. Looks like we got some deer shenanigans going on here
Yeah, look at the
the
teamwork
Femboy
here.
Federation versus
Yeah,
both scouts, pink and a purple, working together to disperse those deer, trying to make that Kremlin not as good as covering all those food resources.
Yeah, this is a really smart opening here. I feel like for Mr. Munch and Sir Eisenstange, it's we see this kind of a thing in 1v1s as well. You're trying to disrupt the food access of your opponent, spread out that food, make the drop-off sites a little bit more ineffective, make it a little bit more difficult to defend those deer packs. But you just see their primary direction from all these moves. They prioritize essentially disrupting the food income for the Roost player out there by double teaming him with the scouts.
Yeah, one thing to look out for, and I've noticed this kind of creeping into the meta, is Pro Scouts is back on the menu. I have seen many civs, more than just even Roost. A lot of civs have been going for Pro Scouts when available. I wonder if on a map as open as this, if we see some of that come into play here. I mean, that would make those scattering of the deer a little less effective, but interesting to see. We got the first cisterns coming up. We got some, it looks like some early olive groves coming for Makomi. And meanwhile, of course, we have stone being gathered for extra TCs. Again, another thing I expect to see is a lot of booming with these civs. Again, the tempo, you have more time because it takes longer to get to your base to attack. So you have more time to boom.
Yeah, that's a great point that you're bringing up. Maps are in general bigger, so as you can see, there's basically no units out just yet for Makomi and Mokraken, and you already have the second DC having been placed for Mr. Mudge. Sir Eisenstange is also going for the second DC out there. It's going to be a 1 DC approach, though, from Makomi and Mokraken, so we're seeing two fundamentally different approaches from teams. One is very eco-heavy with 2 TCs for both players. It looks like the other side is just going to focus on that either full-on military approach in feudal or maybe some fast castles.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because again, once those, I mean, with both teams, both sides of the other team going basically eco, that's going to put them on a timer. But Kobe and Arakan are going to be on a bit of a timer here to either do some damage or get some kind of eco themselves going. I definitely agree. I would expect either some feudal pressure or maybe a fast castle from them. I'm curious to see what they go for here.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of gold miners out there from Makomi and Mokraken, though, and that's definitely on the strange side of things, as we do have the first king arriving here to pressure the gold mine. Tower is going to be complete, though. There is also Ilmitani, so no pressure on this gold achieved here by that initial king. But yeah, one thing to look out for when you're looking for a fast castle is the amount of gold miners you have. And I think that's the thing that we're going to have to keep an eye out on. And on the other side, you're probably going to be looking at Mr. Munch and his teammate looking to disrupt that gold access to slow down any potential fast castles.
Yeah, as you can see with the English King there, that tempo that they get, trying to poke and prod, but again, got there right as the tower was up. Again, again, I'm gonna hammer this home all day, but the size of the map being bigger does throw things off a little bit. And so it was able to get that tower up and is able to start getting some gold. Of course, Roos doesn't really need to mine gold to go fast castle. They could just rely on bounty to get there if they really wanted to. So it'd be a little harder to scout that out. But no, I'm thinking it might be feudal pressure. We've got knights on the field.
This could be interesting because let's not forget, Limitani are resistant to arrow fire, so down center fire hurts them a lot less. And at the same time, you have multiple knights coming in here from Mokraken. And I think this is where Mr. Munch and Mr. Eisenstange realized that, okay, this is going to be a lot of feudal pressure. They got to start getting some units out here. Spearman now coming out from Mr. Munch. He's also mixing in a camel archer to debuff the enemy cab. And at the same time, Makomi is now starting to mix in some longbows from the mercenary camp. So really, it starts to feel more and more like we're going to see that timing push come into play here for Makomi and Mokraken. But they gotta be cautious with this. They're already down by 12 eco, so if they're not quick enough, they are simply going to get outboomed here, I feel.
Yeah, and even if they both push into one, both these civs are pretty good at defending. English in particular, really good at holding and defending. Even Abbasid can really hold down the fort with those camel archers, and they're both booming. So even if they push into one, the other is still going to be getting an eco lead one way or another. They're putting themselves on a timer kind of either way by not matching the eco. But now it's going to be how much damage can they get done, and I would say right now it's looking pretty okay for the Femboy Federation.
As you're saying that, knights are closing distance, longbows in queue as well, Limitani approaching, and an interesting wall on the far left here from Sir Eisenstange. I feel like it's a little ambitious, and I'm not sure how much this wall will help them short term. Long term, maybe it's useful, but I mean, there's still just a massive hole in front of his base. I just don't know if this wall is worth the investment right now.
Yeah, that's like closing your windows and locking that down while leaving your front door wide open. And here we see knights kind of taking advantage of that already. I think we do see a knight. That's a knight down though, so pretty good hold so far from the English here.
There's the healing landmark as well. Oh, Scout goes down over here from Mr. Munch. So you have that landmark, the healing ability right next to that gold mine. That's going to help keep that king alive. That's going to help keep the spearman alive. And you can see that Arakan and Makumi are kind of looking for targets right now. They have the critical mass to potentially facilitate a dive, but they're looking for those longbows. They need those longbows, at least one bash, to start picking off these spears. A mispositioning from Mr. Munch, though. He lost his scout and he lost track of these forces. He's shifting all his forces into the base of his teammate, leaving his own base open.
Oh, this is critical because they're going to pick their perfect timing to go in here. However, knights on the berries, getting some big pickups there. And this is exactly what they need to do. They need to keep that equal level as close to minimal and equal to theirs as possible. Picking up some Vil kills like this, really, really good. And here they are hitting the gold at the same time.
Longbows gotta be careful here. Those are critical to maintain this assault, but the knights are just wreaking havoc on the northern side of the map. And it's this little yellow army is a little isolated, but still, longbows slowly picking away at the spearmen. And most importantly, while this is happening, the knights are still reigning supreme here. Now both armies from Mr. Munch and Sir Eisenstange converging on this yellow force, though they might just be enough to clean up these longbows. I don't know about this, though, in the long run. Because sure enough, you killed a couple of villagers, but now you have Makumi having his entire force cleaned up, essentially. New longbows arrive, though, to start sniping off the spearmen.
I get the feeling this wasn't a great trade. Knights are going to come and help reinforce now, but that was a little bit rough. Makomi's definitely going to be licking his wounds a little bit. They're going to be hoping that Arakan did enough damage to make this count. But again, Abbasid villagers are pretty cheap. You know, you're losing the potential income they could have brought in, but to replace them, it's not that expensive. You're just losing some time.
At the same time, we're up to 12 knights here from Mokraken, and now you've got quite a lot of longbows supporting, and this is a concern for Mr. Munch's team. They don't have anything that deals with the combination of knights and longbows. Villagers are being sniped by the longbows. Now gold is being denied away as well, and those knights are just looking for an opportunity to dive villagers. For now, they are sitting on the gold, preventing a potential castle age or preventing eco upgrades from being bought in. One knight sent into the berry patch just to do some additional raiding. Makumi and Arakan so active all across the map.
I love that play, just to split the one knight across. That's exactly what you want to do, because they're so focused, and they have to respect the like 8 or 9 knights right there next to the longbows, and then you just take 1 or 2 and start hitting and splitting off to go raid. Really good choices there, and I love longbows taking out the camel riders as well, camel archers as well. Big wins for Mokraken.
Yeah, huge losses. Those camel archers take a long time to train. They're expensive as well, and now the knights are diving, maybe a little overzealous, diving into the spearmen over here. They cannot really see them from the actual forest. And this might have been a little too much for Arakan diving into the spears. I don't think he saw them because of the forest. Now, they're still inflicting massive casualties on the enemy villager count, but at the same time, many of those knights are so heavily beaten up now. Camel archers still trying to make a last stand here. Ego from Mr. Munch taking a lot of damage, and now there is a Hero Siphon as well, trying to torch down this town center. Mr. Munch and Sir Eisenstange do have to fight here, otherwise they risk losing this DC.
Yeah, I think that spearman there deserves a Medal of Honor posthumously, because he took out like maybe 2 or 3 knights on his own. That was good, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. This is a very dangerous push, even all things withstanding. Those knights, there's still a critical mass of them kind of on the field, and the longbows just keep pumping in just in time to save the archers and knights.
Mr. Munch is basically no army over here, but at the same time, you do have Sir Eisenstange coming in with 20 longbows now. He's got a couple of spearmen as well. Remember, if they can stall this out, they still have a 20 equal lead almost. So it's a little deceiving in many ways. Mokomi and Mokraken are on a timer. Nice job by Mokraken, kind of splitting the army of Sir Eisenstange over here. Army counts neck and neck, but you just feel like, you know, looking at Mr. Munch's base, you feel that Mokraken has just so much more right now.
They definitely have the momentum on their side right now in the tempo. I kind of wish those knights had charged into the longbows. They were open and ready for the taking, but instead he's going to bring them back and try and hit the town center, which is also a good choice, I suppose. But man, those longbows are kind of the only lifeline that Femboy Federation has left at the moment, because right now the TC's down. So you've taken out one of the threats as far as eco goes. If they can do enough damage here, the numbers for Vils are getting closer and closer, only up by 13 now. They've done a good job of making sure that the eco lead that they have is not that big, and the tempo is completely on their side. They are, at this point, winning this game.
Once again, the Knights decide to fight the Spearman over here. Kirosiphon starting to lose HP here. Longbows slowly picking away at the Knights, and Mokraken in the end kind of concedes all this Knight, or all this group of Knights to the enemy. Mokomi decides to pull back. A lot of his forces were going backwards. It looks like the push did stall out. Army counts are neck and neck, though. You still have to consider that there are 10 Knights on the field for Mokraken. I don't know about this, though, because...
Been 20. I really wish he'd pulled those Knights back.
Right?
He really should have pulled back with Mokomi.
At the end of the day, you look at the population, it's better for Mr. Munch and Sir Eisenstange. Let's not forget, Sir Eisenstange has a second TC as well. So, sure enough, Mr. Munch took a beating, but you gotta ask the question, was this enough damage for Mokomi and Mokraken to compensate for that villager deficit?
I think if he hadn't just thrown away those Knights, it would have been fine. As there we see, that looks like Mokraken throwing in the towel. He just said he's been eliminated.
Wow.
I wonder if he just felt like he threw those Knights away and that was that. Because I was going to say, they were in a winning position at first, but then throwing the Knights away, that was like 8 or 9 Knights. That value lost was not worth the villager destruction they did. Had he kept those alive, they're still in a good spot to go press somewhere else. But
it might be a crash. We're going to have to wait for the admins. We're going to have to wait for the admins because it might have been a crash, especially considering that Mokomi is playing on. Oh, yes, it's a power outage from for Mokraken, unfortunately. That's what I'm hearing from the admins.
Oh, no.
Well, that's upsetting.
I wonder if that happened before or after the Knights were kind of thrown away, or if that was what caused them to get thrown away right there. Because that would make a huge difference. That game was essentially neck and neck still until those Knights got tossed. But if he had power added before that, then that would that'd explain why they got tossed away.
I gotta agree, but unfortunately, you know, life said something else. Now it's, I mean, Mokomi is still in the game here, but 1v2 has basically got no shot at this. It would have been interesting to see the ultimate outcome of this game, you know, 2v2, because you had this classic setup where one team went for essentially a full feudal age push and the other one kind of prioritized economy. And as you said, before those Knights fell, it kind of felt like an even game. Mokomi and Mokraken could have had that second wind to facilitate an attack. But on the other side, Mr. Munch's team had such a big eco lead, so I don't think either of these teams were definitively.
I wouldn't say either of them had won. Yeah, they felt pretty even up until that point. The Knights being alive made it feel like they were still there, but yeah, that unfortunate power outages, man. You hate to see something like that. Thankfully, this isn't the only chance to qualify. So if you know, however things work out, there are more opportunities regardless of the outcome here. But still, very unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. We're gonna have to hear from the admins about. Yeah, there we go. So, so far we have Femboy Federation getting the win for that game. I don't know if it's gonna be a serious win though, because I think that might just come down to whether Mokraken can come back. Although let's not forget, each team does have a substitute. So in this case, they can rotate in the sub. That's part of the reason why you know, this tournament allows a sub to be had. So in theory, Mokomi and Spiritual could still line up and try to turn this series around.
I'd love to see it go the distance. That'd be quite the comeback story, wouldn't it? That was an
That
interesting.
would be
That gave us a
sick.
good
Like
taste, I think.
the redemption arc.
Redemption arc from power outage to champions. Wouldn't that be something? I will say we did get a good look kind of at what we can expect a lot of, I think, in these 2v2s. You know, I mean, I think we just saw both teams kind of went for a strategy, played it out. I think we're going to see just a lot of combinations. And I think that was a good taste of what the kind of games we can expect as far as timing, as far as tempo, as far as general game plan. Granted, that was Dry Arabia, and here on, I'm going to say it wrong as well, but Kerlaugar. This is a very interesting map to see played. I am very curious to see how people want to go about drafting their civs on this and what changes we'll see as opposed to on Dry Arabia.
I expect a lot of changes here. I think one of the coolest things about the tournament format for this event is that every single map is fundamentally different. It's not like, you have a Dry Arabia and then, let's say, I don't know, a High View, which is, of course, a slightly different map, but at the end of the day, it's a similar style. It's a kind of open map that is partially volleyball. Whereas you look at the map lineup for this series, or for the tournament in general, you look at a map like Kerlaugar, it's like fundamentally different from everything else. And then Gorge as well, it's a unique map where the players are kind of stashed behind one another. So it kind of opens up the door for vastly different strategies from what you see on a map like Dry Arabia.
Yeah. I mean, this map, I've seen a couple games on it that have just been the most wild and chaotic things. Like this map plays very, very chaotically with just the two rivers on either side. They do have fish in them, so it's just very, very, very interesting to see how that plays out. It's just chaotic, frankly. Very, very chaotic.
I like chaos.
Me too. I hate playing in the chaos. I love getting to cast and watch as an observer into the chaos. But playing it just makes you feel like you got your head on a swivel. You're looking both ways, all ways. You just go, go, go. It's a very exhausting map to play on, I think, but it should be very fun for us.
Well, we don't have civilizations just yet. But apparently, from what I'm hearing from the admins, Mokraken is back, though. So he's going to give it a second go. Hopefully nothing is going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they have the right to do that. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they've been playing pretty well until that crash.
In fact, push was, I think we're going to assume, I think that the Knights getting thrown away in the base was because the power outage. And if that were the case, he would have pulled those out in time and still had a very sizable army of very powerful mobile units. He'd have a lot of Knights ready to go. They could have swung around and pushed the other side and maybe gone for a play against the English Town Center. They could have kept that eco going. Like, there's a lot of they had a lot of avenues to victory still. It was not like it was a for sure thing they were going to lose. It was very, very neck and neck at that point. They had a lot of tempo going too. So it'll be interesting to see how they take that. Because, when you take a loss like that feels really bad. But at the same time that you lost the first game, but you didn't lose because you played bad. You lost because of outside circumstances out of your control. So I guess going into this next one, you'd kind of have that mentality of, okay, we did really good the first game. We just got to finish this one out now, and then we can go on to Gorge and potentially win.
Yeah, the tricky thing is, I feel, is that now this map is completely different. So sure enough, you did well with that timing push in the first map, but Kerlaugar is going to be fundamentally different. At the same time, it might actually benefit them. You never know. I feel like one of the cool things when you look at a unique map pool for each of these events is that teams can come up with unique strategies. They can come up with maybe these, one-hit wonder style approaches as well, where this strategy only works once and then people will figure out how to deal with it. But nevertheless, when you have brand new maps in a tournament like this, it opens up the opportunities for these teams to bring in strategies that we haven't really seen before and, simply surprise their opponents.
Yeah, it'll be, I mean, again, that's why we like having these kind of maps in tournament settings, right? Is because we can see people will cook up something really interesting and then play it out and no one will expect it. No one will see it coming. So I hope we do see something kind of like that, because from what I have seen on this map, it is, again, very, very chaotic to watch.
I'm very, very curious about it. We have a map pool of about 9-10 maps, I do believe. We have, of course, best of threes here to open the series with, and we have the civilizations just now coming in. So we're basically going to have the draft kind of live over here. Japanese Ayubits coming in for Femboy Federation to start with. Mokraken HRE, soon to be had 2 more civs for them. And of course, at the end of this one, again, you're going to snipe one civilization away from the opponent. Here come the opposites. So, uh, one thing I'm seeing over here immediately is that Mokraken went for HRE in both of their civilization picks. I
Yeah.
wonder if they will get sniped from HRE once again, but you can definitely tell that they kind of love this civilization in a team game setting.
The nice thing about that sometimes is in this kind of a Civ draft format is if you know that that's like if you have another Civ that you also really want to play, and then you know they're always going to snipe the other Civ, you can just put that one first no matter what, and you're happy taking it regardless. Then you can just whatever other two Civs you want, and you just get those. So there could be
Yeah,
kind of a
it's kind
strategy
of a
behind
bait
that as
civ,
well.
right?
Yeah. Japanese, Ayubids, and Chinese for the Femboy Federation. Interesting choices on this map. I've seen Ayubids played on this map before. I'm excited to see Japanese. I think we could see Shinobi being played. I wonder if that's going to get sniped.
Yeah, on a hybrid map or a water map, Shinobi is always an option. Although I think it's a very, very different setup. But there we go. We're not going to see Shinobi on Kerlaugar.
They're probably going to snipe that one. And they're going to snipe ABBA, so they're going to let the Mokraken team take HRE this time around. I think that's a respect to ABBA, though.
How well Shinobi
so
work.
Good. I don't know if it'd be that effective. I mean, they could be good and useful, but it's not like on Four Lakes, right, where they just kind of are the meta. But
I think it's more along the lines of like a 2v2 setup. In a 1v1, they're really good against melee units in general, and you just have to focus down one player with them. In a 2v2, it's a little different because you want more from your military investment. You want actual damage done. Sure, you deny, per se, a dock or something, but that in itself is just simply insufficient.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like enough, whereas you could just take free farms at home, and the little extra wood you get from that afterwards. It's tough. I'm not surprised to see it sniped either way, though. Ayubid's Chinese is a combination I'm kind of excited to see play out because it doesn't seem strikingly obvious what the composition would be, at least not to me right away, especially on a hybrid map such as this. So it'll be interesting to see. Whereas I feel like HRE and French becomes a little more straightforward, right? HRE could really pump out a feudal mass if they so desired, and archers. In French, obviously, there's no surprise that they'd want to go knights.
Yep. I think knights could be an option. I could see a 2DC approach being taken here by either of these teams. In particular, the French could be a really good 2DC civilization and 2v2 setup. HRE could easily be your fast castle style thing. We've actually seen weird combinations, or I'm not gonna say weird, maybe interesting combinations with these civs where the French player could get that map control with the knights, allowing the HRE player to kind of play fast castle, also play knights, grab the relics. Whereas on the other side, Ayubids and Chinese, they definitely feel more on the defensive side of things, and they definitely feel more on the eco-focused side of things.
Yeah, we've got 3 minutes till we get in here. One thing I'm thinking too that I saw played out on this map that I kind of want to just kind of preview before we maybe see it is that there's a lot of resources kind of on the wings. Both from what I saw, the town centers start on the inside, that middle spot, and then on the wings on the either side of the river, there's quite a couple of resources like extra gold veins and stuff. It gets tricky to move out onto those depending on who controls which river, because you could easily have a demo ship come in, and if you've got a bunch of vills that are like looking to cross the river, there could be a potential there for some damage dealt. You can really patrol those rivers and kind of control that part of the map to an extent. So I'm excited to see how that plays out and how they go about trying to claim the avenues to get through that to the resources on the outside. Again, it's going to be really, really wild. This will be the wild, wild west out here, and I'm very intrigued as to how that's going to play out.
Well, we just have 2 minutes left to go. This is the single elimination qualification stage, everybody. So we're opening with best of threes. And then today we qualify 8 players for the main event. Tomorrow we will repeat the same procedure, and we're going to have 8 additional teams joining the ones that qualify today. So we'll have in total 16 teams in the main event. And the main event is going to feature a GSL group stage into a single elimination playoffs. So a lot of opportunities to potentially make up for mistakes once you get in the main event. It's a little bit more difficult in these single elimination qualifiers.
Yeah. Oh, and right now, especially for Mokraken, their back's against the wall here. They have, if they want to keep moving on, they've got to win this match and then go on to win Gorge. Maybe they're more comfortable on Gorge than Kerlaugar. We don't know, but either way, their backs are on the wall. They have to win out to move on. And
sure,
it's tough. It's tough on your psyche. Yeah, it'd be tough on your psyche too, like especially after like the last instance again, like having that unfortunate outcome, but then all right, they've got to reset, but they've got to also win out to move on. So in a tough spot. They're in a very, very tough spot moving in here.
For sure they are. It's never easy, you know, being one game down, but at the same time, you just need a couple of good moves and you're
Yeah.
back in this series. So I think one of the cool things in best of threes that goes kind of either way is even if you're down one game, you just need one well played and well executed game, and you are very much back in the series. So even if you're an underdog, you have some upset potential because you don't need to win 3, 4, 5 games to win a series. You just need to have one or two well played, well executed, and well orchestrated games that you deliver across the series, and then once that's there, you could potentially pull an upset.
Yeah, well, and that can come down to one engagement too. You know, that could come down to one single engagement could determine this game, as we might find out here as we dive in just a second.
Well, in we go. Femboy Federation versus Mokraken, game number 2. We have the debut of a brand new map for Winter Team Championship. It is Kerlaugar. I am super hyped for this map. I've seen, a lot of positive comments about this event, or about this map in particular. Sir Eisenstange and Mr. Munch with the pink and purple colors once again. Mokomi and Arakan, yellow and green. They are the ones spawning to the north, and the Fanboy Federation spawns to the south here on the brand new map, Kerlaugar.
I want to mention one thing that I'm absolutely thrilled as I was going through getting ready for this tournament, looking at the rules and stuff. I love that we have, you might have noticed, you'll notice as we go on throughout the day, the team colors are very well coordinated for this to help the viewer experience. So we have obviously pink and purple for the Femboy Federation, and then green and yellow over here for Mokraken. So you'll see there's also another set of colors combinations we can see for teams that'll really help make it easier. At least for me, I was thinking, man, this is so much easier to tell what teams have similar colors. Thank goodness.
I think
this map super interesting.
I think the colors were actually set in the rulebook, which wasn't the case for previous events. You could just pick whatever, but partly to help out people that are colorblind or their mistake colors for one another. And in general, to just get a more consistent viewing experience with the colors, make it easier to tell who's who. There are certain combinations that the players are allowed to take, kind of like this warm color, cold color style setup.
Yeah, and like in like a 1v1, I would hate to be purple against pink because they are very similar. But here in this instance, when they're on a kind of a team, I really do enjoy being able to kind of tell what team is what without just having it be all blue and red or something, It's one thing I kind of wish they had actually make like actual team kind of colors, like designs for like team games, but that gets kind of into the weeds. Regardless, we see some pretty good standard openings here. Do see fishing boats coming out and whatnot. I can hear the fishes being gathered as we speak. We do have, let's see, on the north side here. Yep, we got the fishing boats coming out. And on the south side, I don't know if we see fishing up north for the Mokraken team.
There's nothing from them. So
yeah.
And this is one of the cool things when you bring in a brand new map like this. These strategies are just so vastly different. Mr. Munch's team is very heavily focused on fishing. Mokomi and Arakan completely ignoring it. But one thing to highlight, and I think this is always an important thing to look at when you look at hybrid maps, is that if you go for fishing, you delay your feudal age. You're going to have a slightly stronger eco, but you're going to be more susceptible to timing attacks, and you're up against a French player coming in with the School of Cavalry, so those early knights, they could do a lot of damage. Mr. Munch's team is going to have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and then again, it is a bit of a bigger map than normal, but those knights move quickly, and they could easily get into the eco. I mean, again, we kind of saw the Femboy Federation go for an eco play last game, and last time Mokraken went for the tempo, went for the pressure early, and we're seeing that play out again. Those knights, I think it's a risky move to play if you're going to go for the all-in aggression. I think the safer bet is to try to play for the eco as well, but they've got the right civs for this. I mean, French is like probably one of the few civs I would say that could really make this work if they get in there at the right time. And obviously, Kraken's already aging up. I mean, looks like Mokomi's going to beat him there, even with his Lock and Chapel on the wood. And so that just screams lots of feudal pressure again from them. The question is, can they make it work this time?
I don't know if Mokomi is going to go for a lot of feudal pressure here. I feel like we could see this 1-2 punch where the French player is the one applying the pressure, and then Mokomi just goes kind of fast castle, relics, and then HRE knights. Or maybe even a Burgrave Palace. It's always difficult to just mass produce from Burgrave. But I could see this being a slightly delayed timing push where they don't just go all in on the feudal age aggression with the HRE player. but rather actually get the Castle Age and then apply that pressure. Interesting choice here from Sir Eisenstange, by the way, to wall off the river. They are definitely concerned about the naval push coming in here, and they're just kind of trying to body block ships. But at the same time, there are not a single dock out there for Mokraken, so it's not like there is any danger of incoming combat ships.
That said, I love that a Kraken is just gonna put a scout there and try and block it anyway, just to mess with Sir Eisenstange. I love that. That's just very fun little micro there. We did see a tower going on for Makomi's gold. That makes me feel like he is just going to go castle. So maybe a Kraken might go for more of a tempo push while Makomi castles up behind. Maybe, like you said, go for a relics grab. Maybe we'll see if he goes for a bird grab. I would expect relics just to kind of match the eco, but we'll see.
Yeah, we talked about this in the previous game. The amount of villagers you have on gold kind of tells you and your opponents even about your game plan. Of course, a rocket is making gold heavy unit knight, so it's not a surprise he's got quite a few villagers on gold. Speaking of villagers on gold, knight dives in here. Tower is being constructed. Nice little body blocks. All of the villagers will be saved. Nice micro there from Sir Eisenstange. But yeah, Mokomi, 5 on gold with HRE, no gold heavy units being produced. It's pretty clear that he is heading towards Castle Age here.
Yeah, that was an excellent reaction, some excellent micro there to get those villagers to safety. I mean, that I thought that was for sure a village. If I were playing that, I'd have lost a villager or two right there. So excellent micro to get those in. The double tower on the gold definitely securing. We see the Barbican coming up. So these players playing for the eco, playing it safe, expecting pressure. Meanwhile, Makomi gathering the golden food he needs. He's about halfway there to Castle Age right now as far as the resources he needs to go up.
Interesting choice for him to invest into racks.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of what the purpose. Maybe he wants to pump out some men-at-arms at some point, or just I don't know. Interesting choice.
He's gotten the Hardened Spearman upgrade, which makes me feel like he might have been concerned about cavalry, but it's definitely a little overcautious of a behavior against these two civilizations. We'll see if that actually becomes a factor anytime soon. But, you know, the investment into Rex, Hardened Spearman, that is something that delays his Castle Age by a handful of seconds.
Yeah. The Ubids is almost ready to go up as well. They're floating and having... They got the stuff to age up about. I mean, they could click up here in just a second if they want the Advanced Wing. I'm curious what he's going to go for. And he does do Advanced Wing. I just saw it click up, hit 1,000 food and click right away. So he's going for a very, very quick Castle Age.
Yeah, I want to revise my opinion on the barracks, actually. Now that I'm seeing, you know, the Iobit player actually getting to Castle Age, and speaking of whom, Mr. Munch is also gathering resources like a madman. This is going to be a double fast castle from Munch and Sir Eisenstange. But yeah, and there is a Burgrave Palace coming in from Makomi, I feel like he's going to go heavy on Spearmen, simply because they are afraid of Camel Lancers. Arakan is heavy into Knights, and you're up against a Castle Age Iobit player. That just screams Camel Lancers to me.
Yeah, one thing we haven't really talked about is how good a Ubids is into French as a civ. We haven't really mentioned that quite yet, but that is a very, very difficult matchup for French. A Ubids with the camels, just their arsenal just almost completely counters French at every turn. So very, very difficult to deal with. And yeah, we got some Castle Age coming in. We get some raids going on as well. That's 1 or 2, maybe just 1 down.
Yeah, 1 villager down, quite some idle time as well. But Sir Eisenstange does have a decent resource bank, so he's going to be able to start popping out those Lancers immediately. And on the other side, Mr. Munch is also going up to Castle Age. It's going to be the Clock Tower play. I wonder what kind of a unit he's going to go for in Castle, though. He is in Song Dynasty. He's going to have the Clock Tower as well for some added siege, potentially. But I wonder if it's going to be a Chukanu play, maybe a crossbow play, especially considering that Mokomi, instead of going for spears, he's opting to go for men-at-arms.
Crossbows would definitely be the right play, I think, here. But then again, we'll see what he goes for. But they're going to need something to deal with those men-at-arms. Because Camel Lancers go okay into them, but once they get the heavy maces, it starts not feeling as good to use Camel Lancers into the men-at-arms. They're just too tanky, and they just can deal enough damage back. So crossbows would be the right choice. But he is queuing crossbows, from what I can see.
Yeah, it's going to be crossbow, Camel Lancer. That's a deadly combination if you think about it.
It really is.
Spearmen might be your best bet if you're Makomi. And I feel like once you start seeing Camel Lancers coming, once you start seeing mass crossbows coming, you got to make a pivot into those.
Yeah, he needs to be making spears desperately, because right now, I mean, the comp that the Femboy Federation are making is going to completely counter these French Knights at some point as soon as they can get massed up enough. Meanwhile, they are trying to do some damage to those Knights, but boy, it just feels like Araken's going to be left here. He's still in feudal. I feel like he's got a lot of knights in the field, but in a couple minutes, they're just not going to matter because there's going to be too many camel lancers and crossbows to deal with them.
Yeah, this is a tricky spot. This is something that we see from the French very frequently, just kind of stuck in feudal age. Now, his units are still high quality, but they are still feudal age units, hard countered by camel lancers. But at the same time, to make camel lancers, you need gold, and this is why these men-at-arms are looking to pressure this position. 2 towers at arrow slits still will hold them off for the time being.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that this was a plan from the get-go for Eisenstrange, because he got the towers there, defending that gold, needs it. Big push happening here. Crossbows trying to kite. That's a lot of knights, though. Ooh, it's a lot of knights. Those crossbows running for their lives, trying to stay safe, but I don't know they're going to get away. They're going to get swarmed by the knights. And now they're onto the vills.
Oh, nice little charge over here by the knights. You got to commit with these. If you do not, you're just going to lose essentially all your momentum, as you said. Quite a lot of villagers will fall victim of these knights. Many of them will be cleaned up, but remember, Mokraken, this is a feudal age army that's hard countered by camel lancers. He needs to find a use for them before the camel lancers start cleaning them up. And I feel like he has done just that. He was able to pick off quite a few villagers, force a lot of idle time over here. At the end of the day, most of the knights will go down, but a lot of damage done to the eco of Sir Eisenstange here.
Yeah, that was a really, really good push. The problem is, I think he's still queuing up more. He's making more knights, though, behind this, and I really question that decision. Like, he needs to get off of knights. He is just playing all in on the feudal, and I don't know that long-term it's going to pay off. That was a good push. And again, exactly what you were saying, you kind of want to throw those away and then change the comp and get as much value as you can, because you're not going to get much more out of them. They're just going to get chased down. And a lot of crossbows now for Chinese. I mean, this is going to clean up the men-at-arms. Suddenly, I feel like the tempo is going to start swinging back towards Femboy Federation as their eco just seems more solid. Their composition seems more structurally sound in the long run. And we see the men-at-arms running back to home. Yeah, more knights getting chased down. Crossbows trying to clean up. This is just looking really rough, I think, for Mokraken right now. Another go down. They just kind of, at this point now, Femboy Federation's feeling really secure. I mean, they've got some water eco. They are both castle. Right now, Mokraken is really, really heavy on the gold. You can see 24 villagers all right there. That thing's about to run out. He's got to move out for more gold. He's got the gold to go castle, but he doesn't have food.
That's going to be a concern here for Mokraken. He's still in feudal age and he's out of food, and this is where you're getting to that point where you're depleting the resources inside your base. You're going to have to start moving out. And you look at Mr. Munch, he's got a decent amount of crossbows, and that's kind of something that deals with everything that Mokomi and Mokraken have right now. Only concern is the Camel Lancer count right now for Sir Eisenstange, but I feel like if he can get a couple more out on the field, he's going to be more than good to go, and they can start pressuring these new resource nodes that Mokraken is looking to use.
The wall went to the water. The knights looking for a place to go in. They can just walk around the wall. Oh, dear. They just walk around and say, that wall can't stop me, getting some more Vil picks. Meanwhile, though, the pressure coming in at the base on the other side of the map, that's going to force the knights home to go defend. Oh, that's a big pickup right there. And this is where it feels like the wheels start falling off for Mokraken, because now they've got the perfect counter units in your base, picking off what little eco you have left. This is looking very, very dangerous. I would say the advantage right now goes to Femboy Federation, full stop, as they dive the base. Backing up just in time, too.
Now momentum is shifting in their favor. Indeed, you have that mobility from the Camel Lancers, but it's a unit that can also do a lot of damage quickly. And I always highlight how it's a high mobility unit that does a lot of damage, but at the same time, it also counters all cavalry. So you don't really have a unit that's capable of matching both the speed and the combat power of that unit. You're either going to have to fight them off with spearmen or crossbows, or you can chase them with cavalry, but you can never fight them head on.
Yeah, they're a tricky unit to counter. They're very, very tricky to deal with. They are expensive, but once you get a critical mass of them, I mean, it gets really tough. You're looking for a really advantageous fight where you make them dive under you and you can just surround them with spears. That's like kind of their only weakness, is if you can kind of catch them and force them to take a very disadvantaged fight. But again, they can just run away. So we do see Rams coming in. Looks like they're just going to go all in against the French. Mokraken still stuck in feudal age. I mean, he's got no option other than to keep making knights. He's got 1,400 gold in the bank, though, as well. So a big missed macro on top of that. Oh man, it feels like they're just dancing all over the map right now.
Yeah. And now Rampush is coming in. Crossbows still a great counter to everything that Mokomi and Mokraken has. Mokomi is slowly mixing in the Spearman, also getting some archers going, but that's just not the unit that you want to go for if you're an HRE player. Now production buildings are being stomped and Mokraken is still stuck in Feudal Age, looking to get to Castle, piling up the resources for it. But that just means that he has to stop the military production. He doesn't have a single unit in queue. He has to choose between getting up to Castle Age and getting units out. And while all of this is happening, Camel Lancers still hold these cavalry units back. All of the cav is being debuffed, and just look at how useless these knights feel against the Camel Lancers.
Yeah, it feels like they're on a losing position no matter what they do at this point. Like, there's not much. You got men-at-arms and you're like walking on your base trying to help you out and defend, but the Rams are tearing you down bit by bit. Your knights completely ineffective because of the counter units they have. It feels rough, and these crossbows are just picking them off little by little as they keep going. And the horsemen they have, you know, ideally, yeah, horsemen can counter crossbows, but not in this number. That's a large mass of camel lancers right there. This looks like it could be a death push right here if they just decide to commit to this. Another ram being built. Camel lancers looking for more vills. They're going to find some right there in that corner with all those berries.
Villagers just have to run around like headless chicken at this point. Mokraken, he's in a tough position. Villagers now, a lot of them are low HP. Looks like the Camel Lancers could finish quite a few. They do get away, though. These are some crucial moments here for Mokraken, getting away with quite a few villagers, but they're also being pinched from the northern side using the other group from Sir Eisenstange. From the south, you have the crossbows moving in from Mr. Munch. You feel like Mr. Munch and Sir Eisenstange are just all across the map right now. They're slowly picking off villagers. They do have an eco lead of more than 20 production buildings are being taken out. And at this point, if you're Mokraken, you're starting to get concerned about losing all your landmarks and just being eliminated.
Yeah, he did go Castlade at some point. Looks like he put his landmark out in the back. I'm not quite sure if that was the... I didn't see if it was the Guild Hall or if it was the... oh, nope, it's going to be the Royal Institute. And that makes sense, given that he does have a lot of knights. He's getting royal bloodlines right now, trying to make those knights more effectual some way, somehow, and maybe do something. But again, with 35 crossbows for the Mr. Munch, it's going to be tough, even if you have Castle Age knights, to do a lot of damage to that. And meanwhile, the base is just getting torn to shreds. Big fight developing here in the middle. All the forces starting to converge. Going for the dive.
This is a beautiful choke point. Absolutely marvelous of a choke point here. And this is just so difficult for Mokomi and Mokraken to dive into. They at least snipe the Rams here, but I don't know if they want to stay and fight this one. Knights charge in, but they're being debuffed by the Camels. Crossbows will pick them apart. And sure enough, you might clean some of these, but I feel like the price to pay is just too much for Mokomi and Mokraken.
Yeah, there's just too much front line and way too many crossbows in the back line. They just clean this up. There's just not... They just didn't have the numbers for it, you know? Like, the amount of camel lancers and crossbows, which are pretty much just very, very hard countering. You see a Wolo coming out. What if it's going to get a unit? Nope, going to get sniped out by the crossbows. Kind of a desperation play there to buy some time, but this game is looking effectually over. And there it is. There's the GG called right as I say that.
It is. GG is being called, and Mr. Munch's team is going to be the one that advances to the next round. Some intense moments over here, but I feel like a lot of this game came down to the civilization selections. It wasn't really an execution thing. It was more about the choice of a strategy and the game plan that you went into this game with.
Yeah, French feudal into being, and especially sometimes we haven't talked about this either, but where you get placed on the map in conjunction with the opponent, right? Because French can maybe have done more against Chinese feudally, but you're closer to a Ubids initially, so your initial push is going to be onto that side. And of course, the Ubids just play so strongly against French, so very, very difficult to deal with, and a tough Civ matchup, tough combination, tough placement on the map for him too. And then just getting stuck in feudal with those knights. So, I mean, he had that great dive. He just needed to swap comps and do something different right after that, though. He got some damage, needed to reset and do something different. Doubled down on the knights just kind of proved to be their demise.